Good afternoon. Today is Friday and welcome to Saba's Way of Life. And I think it is the 9th of August today. I'm not very good at looking at dates unless I have to. So today I am the major part of today's talk is going to be about cults. After the last video, I had some good feedback, and from two ladies that I know quite well, but also from some complete strangers who had contacted me concerning the last part of my video and were very interested in learning more. So I am going to share in the most constructive way that I can the negative implications of a cult, with the understanding that a cult has control. They tend to have cult organizations, movements that behave like a cult, and today what I'm going to do is define what a cult means, but it's just one definition. There are many other definitions. The ones I've used after my research, and I'm still in the process of researching cults, and I'll explain to you why I'm doing this afterwards, because to me the most important element of truth, freedom and health is three separate things, nothing to do with the movement. I've always been an advocate of truth, freedom and health and a way of life. In order for those to have the most power in an individual's life, you have to have control of your own mind, complete freedom of thought. So there's no way that I'm going to be able to explain that to you just in one video. In fact, for those of you who may not have watched all the videos, you'll note that I don't have playlists. Well, I do have one, and that's the cancer series that I did, and I just set that one up today. But I don't want to put the rest as playlists, because what I advocate is a way of life and a way of thinking. And therefore, in order to understand that, you would have to go through each video one at a time to really gauge how I think and why I'm recommending you do that. It'll give you it's only when you look at things from a systems perspective being as a whole, from a high, as an eagle perched up. I mentioned this in yesterday's video, and I've mentioned it in many videos, to be able to observe and see play down below. That is a system thinker, and I've been a system thinker for a long time. I'm not always good at it. One can never be, that's the beauty of it. It's the ability to be able to step back and observe and be very objective and self-critical as well. So the point I was making is that when you watch each video one by one, it'll give you a really good understanding of a way of life, because I believe with every fibre of my being that it's our way of life that attracts truth, freedom and health. It's our way of life, what we do every moment of every day, which contributes massively to how we think and our clarity of thought, and whether we can trust our thought and our choices based on what we do. Before I sit down and do that, or at least the first part of it, if you remember from the last video, I had shared a part of my the video was on my cucumber plant, and I explained to you that there was a cucumber that had just formed. Let me turn this around now to you. That there was a cucumber that has just formed, and I wasn't sure whether it had been pollinated or not. Well, if you look here is that cucumber, and I said that it's probably going to disappear and die, and it's done just that. Can you see it here? And I didn't see it in time to pollinate it. Obviously no bees had. So this poor little cucumber is just shriveling off and dying. It's a shame because this is a heritage heirloom cucumber. It's quite rare, and the seeds are quite rare, so I really need to look after this. Having said that, down below here on the same plant, you will look here, there is another cucumber. I don't know whether you can see it. I'm just going to put my finger here to, yes, there it is. Can you see? And that flower is open. Now I've already, where is it? Here it is. I have already taken another flower, a male flower from this plant and or the one next door. If I show you here, this is a male flower, this yellow one, because behind it, if you can see behind it, there's no swelling, there's no cucumber forming. So I picked off earlier one of these flowers, opened up the petals so that you could see the inside right there, the male part inside, and I then placed that, hopefully not too late, into the flower here of this female plant where the cucumber is forming behind it. Can you see? So hard to show you. There, right? And I'm hoping that this cucumber will flourish and grow into a wonderful tasting cucumber if we get sun in August. The other good news that I want to show you in the garden, again from yesterday's, 2 days ago rather, the video, I think it was on the 6th of August, I showed you my plum tree, and it was a brown kind of mould forming on the plums, and I was worried that it was going to affect the whole tree and all the fruit on the tree. Well, I had gone to visit my parents. I go and see my parents every day. That's why I'm living here, because it's close to them, and they're in their twilight years now. My father is nearly 90, my mother very close to 80, and they're doing really well because they have family around them, but I'm digressing. That come to see them all the time, and they look after us and we look after them, and that's what brings joy to life. If you're lucky enough to have family, spend time with them. It's an absolute priority, especially elderly family. So I've gone to see my mum, and she said to me, well, have you tried spraying them? I said, Mum, I've already sprayed them to stop the old little moths getting inside the plums. She said, no, try spraying them with aspirin. Now, I know I've heard about this before, but because we know if you look at the original aspirin, it's a derivative of willow bark. Willow bark is a natural painkiller and remedy. She said if you spray them with aspirin, it'll probably prevent the mould. So I thought about it. She's got some aspirin, some proper aspirin. So I took a tablet from her, had nothing to lose, and I crushed it, mixed it with warm water. I've got a great filter at home, and I mixed it with warm water from that filter, and I sprayed it. This is 2 days ago now, and speak too soon, but they're starting to ripen here, and there is absolutely no mould on them. In fact, there is, I don't want to speak too soon, but just want to show you. Here is one that has ripened nicely all around. I don't want to knock it off. Can you see it? There's many more ripening, but there's no mould on them. If I see any mould growing, I am going to take it off. So fingers crossed that remedy may have worked. There's a lot of plums here. These are Victoria plums. We love them. I used to go plum picking and just eat loads, and then I was on the loo all afternoon. But yeah, that's a good little secret. And the other thing I want to show you before we talk about the rest of the stuff is this. I've got a peach tree here. See this peach? This one had fallen on the floor. Such a lovely peach tree that was given to me by an elderly neighbour who died last year. You can see it here. It was a tiny cutting he gave me. It's 3 years now, and this last year I had 70, 80 peaches. My father loves peaches and he ate most of them, which is great. Now, this year, the squirrels have found out about them. Can you see there's a cluster there? I don't know if I'm trying to show you on this video. You can see it there, look, the cluster of peaches. But there's about 5 or 6 left on this plant, on this tree, and unfortunately the squirrels have got them and I can't stop them, so I don't know, I'll have to find a way next year to prevent them from eating them all. But I see them in the morning. I mean, I'm up very, very early, 4:35, and you can hear them climbing on the fence, and they're sitting on the grass. They're quite tame and they're munching away at the peaches. Right? And you know what, they're so cheeky that they won't touch the one that's on the ground already. They'll go and pick one off the tree. Very intelligent animals, so arguably they eat. They're much healthier than we are. Well, they are, not even arguably, they're much healthier than we are. We have dumbed down so much that we just eat food like substances. Well, I don't, I try not to, but most people do. And then you wonder why they haven't got control of their own mind. Right, let me sit down here and discuss cults with you, and particularly the truth. Hope you can see me properly here. It's hard. That's better, just get some light. That's it. And the Truth, Freedom, Health movement that I was involved in since April this year. And in my opinion, there are very many cult-like tendencies in there. Now, before I talk about that, what I want to do in this video is to share with you some of my research on what a cult is, and then give you a few pointers from my own mind if I can remember them all. I like to do videos which are ad hoc and not prepared, but I have done a little bit of preparation for this one. It's not my natural way of shooting videos, but this is very, very, very important because I was very disturbed by what I saw happening. And I need to point out is that I am still of 2 opinions as to whether this is premeditated or whether it has become this way. But let me just read out a few things to you, and then I'm going to share those areas where I can tick the box, as I said in the last video, that I had experienced this, this and this. In the next video I'll talk more about my experience. Okay, so a cult, and this is just one explanation, is an organised group whose main purpose is to dominate the members through psychological manipulation. Now remember, when anyone is being psychologically manipulated, they don't know they are, otherwise it can't happen. You know, no one says, I'm going to psychologically manipulate you. No, it's done in a very clever and oftentimes covert way. Right. Through psychological manipulation and pressure strategies. Again, strategies which give a feeling that you are under some pressure. This happens to all of us all the time. It happens, remember, when we talk about cults, you've got cultures. Our conditioning growing up can be a cult. The world, the way it's run by the elites, is a cult. It's a culture. Religions and the way, look at the Mormon religion, it's an obvious cult type setup. So this isn't just synonymous with this organisation, Truth, Freedom, Health. It happens everywhere, but the point is, we are living in a society today where we don't have control of our own minds. It's very, very challenging to it, and even though we think we do, we don't. Thoughts don't come from our mind, they come from outside. into our minds. You don't develop a thought. It comes from outside in when you understand how how frequency, vibration works, how we work as human beings, our biology, human biology. This needs to be understood, and we're living in times right now, and this is important. We are living in times right now where we are going through a seismic shift in consciousness, and we are being aided by a huge amount of cosmic activity. This is steeped in real science. Most of you know this, but you're not quite sure what it means. What I'm saying is, if there is any time as ever to be able to harness the power of your own mind, it's now, because we're being aided cosmically through nature, through nature's principles. Okay? Probably why I'm doing this video now. Now, quite often cults are headed by a powerful leader who isolates members from the rest of society. Now, it doesn't do that obviously. It's not done obviously, is it? It's done in a covert way. How? Probably by ensuring that you attend meetings regularly, probably by, well, most of it is through social media, constant barrage and repetition of messaging, constant. It doesn't stop, so you know, your mind doesn't stop to look elsewhere or think elsewhere. Cults have a leader, and oftentimes they're not voted in. They're almost always self-appointed leaders. I'm the leader, I have an idea, and this is how it is. And very many of these cults, and this is the case for Truth, Freedom, Health, really believe, and I'm talking about Shiva Ayadai, he really believes, he says this openly in many of his videos, I'm right. I know the truth. This is the way it's going to be. This is the way it is. This is what these people are doing. He uses much more foul language, I mean really foul language, and even that language, whether it is validated or not, or necessary according to him, it has an effect on your mind. Especially when it's constant, day in, day out, day in, day out, barrage. As a colleague of mine I was speaking to yesterday said to me, it's like, you know, your brain is being drilled. And for me, and for those of us who spend a lot of time in silence, in nature, quiet time, a lot of it, and alone, in peace, real peace, seeing that kind of and hearing that kind of activity really is very, very dangerous for the brain. But if you don't know anything else, you're living like that. And I'm going to talk about some solutions afterwards. And that leader, oftentimes self-appointed, always, he makes the rules that guides members. Of course, it can be a she. Now, this is what I got from the Cult Education Institute, because I've been looking into it and I've just started. The specific warning signs for cult behaviour in an organisation is, number one, authoritarianism, being authoritative without any accountability. I'm going to discuss more about that in my next video about cults. They're not all going to be about cults. I do not want to spend all my energy talking about cults. It's not going to do my mind any good. But I will be doing this as a series, and it will go into a playlist. Number two, zero tolerance for criticism or questions. I can tick that box. For criticism. Good grief. Dare we criticise the leader here? Lack of meaningful financial disclosure regarding budget. I can't comment on that one here, but that's something that the Cult Education Institute says be aware of. Unreasonable fears about the outside world that often involve evil conspiracies and persecution. Well, the whole political side of Truth, Freedom, Health, the only thing that's ever discussed by Shiva on that is how evil the other political parties are. They're all evil. Trump, and I'm not suggesting that they're not, but that's all we hear. Trump, Biden, Kamala Harris, and then all the others. But then not only that, these also not so obvious establishment people, and there are many of them, and there's a lot of good information there, there's no doubt about it. But where does it end? Dr. Asim Malhotra, he's a gentleman that whose work I've been following for many, many years, and I've read his book, brilliant book called The Piopi Diet, his first one, and it's given me so much help. It helped my father come off statins. When I read out the information in that book, I've met him, I've seen him, I've spoken to him. He's very softly spoken, he's a very kind person. I'm not going to be bullied into believing that he is evil and he's part of the establishment and he's been brought in because he's brown to take and distract us from Shiva, which is his own words. And then I'm in one of the open houses. This is very early on. Remember, I was still figuring it all out, and you'll know more from my next video when I explain how much regard I had for this man before. And he's kind of fallen from grace from my mind. For me, it's so disappointing. But I was told off in an public open house conversation on Zoom. I was told off for why did I even ask a question about how good the work is of Dr. of Dr. Asim Malhotra. Did I not know he's a not so obvious establishment? So, and then all this so-called claimed evidence was given to me, which may well be. Well, look at the timing of what he did. And this is the reason he did it. He did it then because he wanted to make money. And all these graphs came out and so on. He wanted to make money. Now, look, it all looked fantastic. But if at that time my mind was, yes, correct, he's got to be a bad man. But when you step back and you analyse, and then you use your own mind to figure out who Dr. Asim Malhotra is, what he's done, and then you look at everything else. Remember, this has been a few months of absolute immersion around Shiva Ayyadurai, which I did in great detail. Your mind starts to form a very different perspective on everything. And that's key. It takes time. And you've got to be able to use your own mind and think. And I'm going to share a couple of links below which will help you understand what I mean here. Number 5, a belief that former followers are always wrong. A belief that former followers are always wrong. So those people that were in the, in my opinion, cult and left, they were the ones who were wrong. Again, I know this to be true because I've got evidence of it. I won't share that here with you because I don't really want to hang dirty linen out to dry. But I want to, the whole purpose of this talk, this video, is for you to start exploring, do I have my own mind? Do I think for myself? Have I looked at every angle? That's why I'm doing this. It's important, otherwise you're going to be enslaved for the rest of your life by whatever it is. Abuse of members. I can safely say to you that I was abused, verbally abused, once, twice, thrice, in written form and in verbal form, by one of the quote-unquote leaders. Followers feeling that they are never able to be good enough. Well, that never occurred to me because I know who I am. Many and most people don't. And that's something to think about. A belief that the leader is always right. I really want to express the importance of the word belief. Our belief systems are about to be shattered in this environment coming. And you're going to have to be prepared for it. A belief that the leader is always right. And I can tell you in this movement, in my opinion, cult, all the members that I've come across and I've heard and I've listened to, only the ones that I've listened to, actually believe that the sun shines out of this man's bottom. Even I did for a while, because there's one side of his work, which is the health side, which is truly brilliant, and I'll talk about that more. That's been shattered as well, and I'll explain that to you. A belief that the leader is the exclusive means of knowing truth or giving validation. That is a tick, 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 tick 10 times over. See, the main concern, and I wrote this afterwards, what came through my mind, is that these practices can be deemed as deceptive, in my opinion, and they are very covert ways, and they can be very covert ways of making members obedient to the group. And I can evidence this at least with 2 people, and one particular person who has now left the group and who was actually frightened to leave in many ways. Not frightened as in, oh, something's going to happen to me, but it's a psychological fear, because she didn't have control of her own mind, didn't have confidence. So cults seek control of the mind. They seek control of how you think and what you think. So in my opinion, that is a type of psychological warfare. Now, there are a lot of vulnerable people in the world, and this is actually coming from the Cult Education Institute, who are very, very insecure. It's called attachment insecurity, and so they have this desperate need to feel accepted, and that's where a cult comes in, because it can promise that kind of acceptance. I want to recommend, you might have heard of a gentleman called Steve Hassan, who in his younger years, when he was at university, was involved in a cult. I can't remember the name of it, but I'm going to share the TEDx talk. And he teaches people, he's written a book on it now, how to tell if your mind is hacked. And he talks about, I listened to this TED talk, it was really interesting. I could, again, more boxes ticked, where he says that cults often, what they do is, once you're in the group, in this case Truth, Freedom, Health, and you take the Warrior Scholar course, which is brilliant, by the way, it's really good knowledge in there. But what Steve Hassan says, just in his own TED talk from a couple of years ago, is that what happens is, not in relation to this particular group, this particular movement, cult, in my opinion, what he says that most cults do is then they elevate you to leadership. And then there are these secret leadership meetings, and quite often you'll have to sign a form, a non-disclosure agreement, that you can't talk about it with anyone. And there is always some kind of fight involved for some kind of freedom. These are Steve Hassan's words from memory of his TEDx talk. So I'm going to share it. You listen to it yourself. I'm silent because this is exactly what happens in this movement, Truth, Freedom, Health. Oftentimes, Steve Hassan says there is sleep exhaustion. And he was suffering terrible sleep exhaustion. And he said, it's unbelievable. Here I am suffering sleep exhaustion, and I didn't get paid for it. I'm silent again. Figure it out. Constant repetition, which equates to indoctrination. Constant repetition. I am the person to lead. I am this. They did this to me. They hate me. They blocked me. I'm going to come back to that word about blocking in another video when I talk about the systems health part of it. They blocked me. They hate me. They hate this. They hate that. Everything is about hate, hate, hate. And from an energetic perspective, if you're constantly talking about others hating you, you are sending that energy out into the void, the cosmos, wherever, and that energy is going to come straight back at you. That's how it works. And that stems from fear. If you are living from a place of fear and hate is fear, hating everybody, that's fear. You're creating more of that in the world. And I'm not articulating it as well as others do. I've listened to so many videos from so many different people on this. If you're fighting from a place of fear, you have got it all wrong. If you're going to fight and be a warrior, it needs to be from a place of love. That's how we not win, that's how we triumph. Winning is you lose, I win. Triumph is very different. To be triumphant means that entire dimension of hate and fear just disappears and dissipates, because the only dimension that exists is the dimension of love. Hope I'm explaining that properly. So constant repetition and indoctrination. Steve Hassan said, he was told that he is brainwashed by the communist media. Constantly told by this cult that he was brainwashed by the media, not realizing that he's being brainwashed himself in the very cult he was in. Again, I'm smiling because there are so many parallels. The other thing he said, which really hit home to me, is that he became an individual, because you can imagine his entire family, and he had a family, were absolutely desperate to help him get out of it, but he was so brainwashed they couldn't get through to him. He was totally mind manipulated. And he said he recognized afterwards that he had a completely dual identity. You know, I can't remember what he used. He said before that he was really interested in art or something like that. I can't remember what. But he had this dual identity, that part of him loved certain creative talents, but another side of him, which of course he didn't have time to engage in because of this constant barrage of repetition and brainwashing. And those around him said, what happened to you? You've got this horrible, nasty side to you that attacks us. But you're a really lovely person. Now, I can tell you there is an individual, I don't want to name names, but it's pretty obvious, who when I first started was very kind, and is a very kind human being, an older man, very kind human being, and I got on very well with him for the first couple of weeks. And then I suddenly saw such a nasty, evil side to him, where I was verbally abused or attacked suddenly out of the blue. I thought, what is that? That is a dual identity. And that only comes when, in my opinion, when somebody's creativity, innate creativity as a human being, is suppressed. But they've been mind manipulated into believing it's the right thing to do. And it's absolutely devastating to witness this. Now I look back on my own life, my younger years, where I myself was part of the cult of capitalism and working in a financial institution, thinking it was the right thing to do and make money. And it took Crohn's disease for me to see through that. When I got hit with Crohn's disease, that's another story, because I healed my own disease naturally, which is probably what really brought me where I am here today. So that is Steve Hassan's work. Now, Steve Hassan actually says these are the solutions, and I'm going to second them because I say the same thing, and I've been saying it in videos for a long, long time. Number one, he says, if any of those things I've said to you, this is me, what I've said to you in today's video, ring a bell and think, oh my God, this is happening to me. And some of Steve Hassan's work, watch his video first. The solutions are, number one, disconnect from all media for a period of time. Completely, a week, 2 weeks. I would say even longer. Just disconnect. Go into silence. This is coming from me here. Go into silence. Sit somewhere quiet. If you've got a garden like I have, somewhere like that, go out into nature, go into the woods, go by the sea, go to the countryside, hills, mountains, anywhere. Just sit in silence. And I would actually say, not just to members, but also to the leader of a cult, because I'm sure inside there must be a lot of a human being with love who is completely lost. Disconnect, because the way cults operate and they succeed is they constantly reinforce their belief systems, which drill into your mind, as I've said earlier. Second thing he says, which is what I'm doing right now, is learn how authoritarian models work. And the greatest paradox here is that I have learnt this amongst many other places. I've been in this arena for many years, but also this is the paradox, and this is part of the plan actually, in my opinion, that I've learnt this in the Warrior Scholar course. You're taught how these models work. Yeah, you have to laugh, don't you? It's just hilarious. Learn about these models and how they work. It's all over the net. Just do your homework. Learn how they influence, and often it's through distorting the truth and deception. Deception comes in many forms. I'm going to talk more about that in the systems health experience that I'm going to discuss with you in another video soon. Number 4, Steve Hassan says, seek out critics and seek out former members. It's not always easy to do, but I've already spoken to quite a few in this particular instance. Not the media. Don't go to media. Seek out former members. He says, it's your mind. You choose, you decide, think for yourself. And in that TED Talk, he explains how his family got together to get him out of it. And it's a brilliant TEDx. And then he said, number 5, he said, really take time for honest self-reflection. Again, this is something that Shiva talks about in a lot of his videos, self-reflection. Oh my God. Take time for honest self-reflection. And what Steve Hassan, he says, go back and think and look back before you went into the cult. What brought you to that group in the first place? What were you doing at the time? Were you painting? Were you gardening? Were you looking after family? What were you doing? Or what was happening in your mind that took you into that group cult setting? He says, if you knew then what you know now, would you have got involved? Think very carefully about your life and what you do every day, and does it actually work towards harmony, health, balance, doing good works, helping humanity, helping your neighbours, helping your family, helping yourself, to be kind, gentle, good members of society. And if you're going to fight for something, you first ensure that you are operating and you are vibrating from a frequency of love. And none of those members are. It's impossible, because the only thing you hear in Truth, Freedom, Health and all the videos is hate, 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 swear, swear, swear. This is a fact. Hate, 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 swear, swear, swear. They hate me. I mean, even part of the, read some of the literature in there. Hate. They hate you. They all hate you. Come on. I even fell for that. This is what happens when you're in it all the time. The worst of you comes out. We've all got it in us. It's good and evil. We're fighting good and evil. So focus on the good from your heart space. But we've all got that dark shadow side of us. And if you're listening to that shadow side, you become it. You're attached to that third dimensional low frequency, negative low negative frequency. It's only when you step back, and as Steve Hassan says, and as I mentioned many times, it's disconnect and go into silence for a period of time, that you really become aware. And that's the first thing that you need to do. Right, that's all I'm going to talk about today. I am going to expand upon this in other videos, but in between I'm going to talk about things that are going to expand the heart, because I really want you all to enjoy my channel, and most of this channel is about nature, love, cooking, family, but also you have to be, this is not a new age thing where you're not aware, ignore what's going on. No, you have to be fully aware of what's going on in this space, fully aware but in charge of your mind, so that every choice you make comes from your source connection, your connection to source. And it would happen, if you're connected to source and you live in that way, it would happen automatically. You would just make the right choices because you're on that frequency, you're on that bandwidth. But it's very hard, because even those that are, it's easy to fall back into the wrong frequency of this particular theatre that we live in. And that's when your inner tuition, your intuition comes in. That's your backup. The greatest power is to step away and go into silence, away for 3-4 weeks. And I promise you, miracles will happen, because right now there is an energy in the cosmos that for those people who are open to it, that's why there is an attempt to distract you and keep you away from your natural humanness. As Gregg Braden says, I'll share his work probably in the next video, one thing at a time. That's the fight between good and evil. It's a different fight altogether, okay? Don't forget to watch, if you're new, try to go back and spend a little bit of time looking at all the videos. Don't binge watch, because I don't advocate that. Slowly, one at a time. It will, if you find you're resonating with what I'm talking about and the work I do and the way I live, I live a way of life practically, and I put these videos up not every day, whenever I can. It will offer you so much healing, honestly, so much healing, very valuable. Have a wonderful Friday.